500,000 years. That is how long it had been since the grand alignment, the celestial phenomenon, when the great stellar constellations arrayed themselves in perfect geometric symmetry, granting a fleeting stillpoint in the churning currents of time and fate. In the eons since, innumerable empires had risen to dizzying heights, only to fracture under the weight of their own ambition. And yet, among the splintered remnants of galaxies and star clusters, one name persisted in fearful reverence. The Cal single quotes DOR. Their home world, Vexa Prime, lay at the heart of the starbound expanse, a nexus where 10 spiral arms converged. Millions of vessels traversed its orbits daily, merchants haggling over exotic minerals, pilgrims seeking transcendence in crystalline temples, and refugee convoys fleeing the endless wars that scarred the nearest systems. All of them felt the tremor when the Calder's signal first pierced the background hum of subspace. Behold, we have conquered. The broadcast was a singular moment of primal clarity. Across hyperwave channels, the phrase looped endlessly for 3 standard hours, carried by automated relay stations and hijacked frequencies. Some suspected it was a test and echo from some ancient archive accidentally reactivated. Others thought it a hoax, a inebriated prank by bored interstellar drifters. But soon after, the Calder themselves emerged to confirm the message on Vexa Prime's surface. Before the towering spires of their crystallized citadel, the Calders staged an exhibition of conquests that spanned millennia. Hololithic displays shimmered in the twilight. The fallen battlecruiser of the Magallari, its hull pocked with plasma scars, the shattered moon city of Eorsa, once a bastion of Xanthian art and philosophy, the skeletal remains of the Eye of Sol, the ancient sentient star that had ruled its system by psychic dominion. Each relic was arrayed like a trophy, a silent testament to the breadth of their dominion. But the might of the Calder was not measured merely in spoils. Their very presence warped the laws of physics around them. Gravity wells bent imperceptibly. Time shimmered at the edges of perception, and the crystalline spires of their city hummed with an almost sentient resonance. Scholars argued over the mechanism, some posited quantum field engineering. Others whispered of psionic harmonics drawn from the core of collapsed neutron stars. Whatever the source, to stand within 20 kilometers of the Calder capital was to feel reality itself slip. The galaxy's reaction was muted. On Helion Station, the neutral orbital hub that floated between for star systems, the great hall where ambassadors met was flooded with chatter. The Malethi delegate, her leafy fronds quivering with curiosity, tilted her head. They claimed conquest, she translated into common tongue. Of whom, exactly? Round her, envoys smirked or shrugged. The fragile assembly had grown adept at treating grand proclamations as background noise, a galaxy half remembered, half ignored. Farther out, in the asteroid belt of Rigel 7, the pirate Lord Vex Lumaris sipped his fermented gelatum, laughing. Conquered, he scoffed. They're nothing but a fancy cult with big ships, his lieutenants roared. They had made a comfortable living in the lawless fringes. Calder relics meant profit. Scavenging shattered vessels, selling off exotic tech. Any new war would line their pockets nicely. But not everyone found cause for mirth. On Arcadia Station, a fortress of human marines orbiting the war-ravaged world of Dion, Captain Asha Reynolds studied the broadcast logs. Her ivory-bladed data slate reflected her stern gaze as she replayed the message. Every half-millennium they rise, make their boast, then vanish back into myth. She muttered to her XO, Lieutenant Darian O'Neill. We've got bigger problems on Dion rebel uprisings. Supply shortages. Why stir our guns toward Vexa Prime? Darian shrugged, thumb flicking through the logs. Because, Captain, if they're serious, we'll wish we'd paid heed. Meanwhile, in the fractal spires of Xanthus capital, the high philosophers gathered around the crystal lattices that parsed cosmic events into mathematical elegies. The senior adepts argued, voices echoing like chimes in the hollow halls. The Calder's announcement is purely symbolic, declared Adept Thalir. They wish to catalyze the next cycle of conflict. Only in war can they renew their purpose. The council buzzed. It was said that the Calder drive their cohesion from conquest itself. In times of idle peace, they atrophied, their minds fracturing into madness. To challenge them was to give them life. It was in this climate of skepticism and half-hearted titters That a lone signal slipped through the veil of apathy. Deep within the irradiated rings of the steppe beyond Nebula, Admiral Tsak of the Voron Collective listened to the boast without emotion. The Voron, a race of biomechanical tacticians, had long weathered the Calder-S storms. Their fleets, vast as solar storms, danced a cold ballet across the stars. Yet Tsak felt something in that single word, conquered, that struck. A chord somewhere primal. Her flagship, Ikrilmaru, drifted in the nebula's ghostly glow, its hull camouflaged by the ionized mist. Tsak-S multiple eyes adaptive lenses that saw across the electromagnetic spectrum refocused. On the star map before her, her mandibles clicked in calculated rhythm. They boast without specifying their domain, she mused, addressing her council of captains. Do we let it pass, like every other cycle? Or do we remind them that no empire endures forever? The question hung in the metallic air. The Voron prided themselves on ruthless efficiency and an unerring sense of overdue. Reprisal, some captains urged caution. A war with the Calder yields only ruins. Others whispered of the old Voron legends, the glorious battles of a lost era, when they had driven back the tide of Calder expansion. All agreed, however, that the universe teetered on a knife's edge. To challenge an ancient conqueror was either the pinnacle of defiance or the nadir of folly. As the galaxy at large laughed, whether in disbelief, derision, or nervous dismissal, the seeds of war took root in secret councils. On hidden decks, in the hushed exchanges of spies and diplomats, the word conquest carried a gravity that belied its simplicity. For some, it was opportunity. Pirate arms dealers readied new shipments of outlawed pulse rifles. Mercenary guilds updated their blacklists. For others, it was dread. Refugee colonies froze their routines, wondering if aid convoys would be disrupted. Starfarers adjusted their routes to avoid Vexa Prime's newly militarized sectors. Even beyond the conscious realm of politics and power, the Calder-S echo resonated. In the organic dreamscapes of the Malathi, spores shivered with latent fear. The Xanthian fractal networks experienced silent feedback loops of anxiety. On Arcadia Station, Captain Reynolds awoke from her sleep in a cold sweat, haunted by a vision of crystalline spires blossoming across familiar worlds. Yet amid all this, one certainty emerged. Laughter, however boisterous, was a tenuous shield. Echoes across eternity foretold nothing and everything. The first gesture of true defiance would shatter the fragile calm. Somewhere, in the silent void between stars, the galaxy prepared to awaken. And when it did, the Calder-S boast would find its true reckoning. The neutral moon of Artevos hung like a pale sentinel in the void. Between the twin suns of the Hestara system, its surface was carved into vast, amphitheater-like terraces hewn from the moon's white marble, each tier ringed by towering obsidian. Spires that served as meeting halls and meditation sanctuaries. Here, far from old alliances, ancient grudges, and the prying ears of the Calder, a motley congress of the galaxy's greatest powers assembled in secret. The concord of stars beneath the vaulted ceiling of the Grand Rotunda. Representatives from more than a dozen civilizations gathered around a circular table of polished crystal. The air was thick with tension and the faint hum of holo displays, three-dimensional star maps, casualty projections, supply route overlays. At the center of it all, a holographic emblem glowed, to crossed swords overlaid by a dove symbol, of the newly christened Concord of Stars, human delegation, led by Ambassador Nilla Crawford, whose calm steel blue eyes belied her years on Warscard Dion, flanked by Captain Asha Reynolds and Lieutenant Darian O'Neill in dress uniforms. They spoke of logistics, of retrofitting Rust Belt shipyards, of rationing fuel for months, of patrols. Melethi Envoy, the ivy-crowned Ambassador Shalri, her voice a gentle whisper like rustling leaves, cautioned against bloodshed. Conquest feeds on conflict, she murmured, yet our people remember lost gardens and broken pacts. We must temper might with mercy. Xanthian philosophers, a trio of adepts draped in fractal robes, their speech weaving mathematical proofs into political argument. Adept Thalir insisted the Calder-S boast was a psychological gambit, an attempt to force the galaxy into perpetual war so that the Calder themselves could find purpose. Voron Council, Admiral Tsak stood apart, her multiple eyes scanning every face. her voice a gravelly mix of organic and synthesized tones cut through idle chatter. "We convene here not to debate whether we should fight, but how." The Calder will not pause for our indecision, even as they deliberated. Security drones small, insectal automatons hovered above, scanning for unauthorized transmissions. Every word was encrypted, every document vaporized upon reading. Yet beneath the formality lay festering distrust. Human officers whispered of Malethi spies. Xanthian adepts muttered about Voran infiltration. The room, grand as it was, felt suffocating. A theory of conquest on a side platform. Dr. Alina Reyes tapped her datapad, heart pounding. The xenopsychologist had been summoned by Ambassador Crawford to interpret the Calder psyche. As the delegates debated ship counts and warp corridor blockades, Reyes stepped forward, projecting a neural pattern visualization above the table. "The Calder drive identity from Conquest itself," she began, her voice steady despite the severity of her revelation. "In their society, every decade of peace leads to cultural decay. Schisms form. They lose cohesion. Their legends speak of an ancient conqueror's right, a cosmic ritual performed only amidst total war." A murmur ran through the council. Ambassador Shalry S. Franz quivered in alarm. "You mean, they called us here to fight?" Reyes nodded. "Their broadcast is not merely a boast, it's an invocation. By issuing a universal challenge, they ensure the galaxy rallies against them, providing the conflict they require." She paused, scanning the faces around her. "If we delay, we grant them time to prepare their right. If we act rashly, we fall into their trap." The Sable Fleet emerged off a galaxy away. Hidden beyond the Vector Rift's ionized veil, the legendary Sable Fleet stirred. Ancient dreadnoughts painted a matte black, scarred by millennia of battle, lit their engines for the first time in ages. At their helm stood Admiral Corin Voss, draped in a coat woven from the shadows of collapsed stars. His voice echoed through the carders of his flagship, Knight's Vengeance. "We answer the call," he declared, staring at the holomap of Artevos. "But know this, I will offer my steel only if I wield its edge as I see fit. Give me unilateral strike authority or let me watch from the sidelines." His demand rippled back through the Concord's secure channels, igniting fierce debate in the Grand Rotunda. Captain Reynolds bristled. "We can't hand over our thumb to a war criminal." Admiral Tsak countered. "If he strikes decisively, we may not need the entire fleet." Negotiations stretched late into the Artevos night, punctuated by shouts, slammed datapads, and threats of withdrawal. Espionage and intrigue, the council argued. Clandestine cells moved in the shadows. Malethi infiltrators whispered to Xanthian moles. Human intelligence operatives bribed Voran technicians. Even Corin Voss's own officers plotted a coup should he concede too much authority. Across the marble terraces, agents traded encrypted data cubes beneath statues of ancient heroes, unseen by the grand banners overhead. It was in one such hidden alcove that Reyes received a coded alert from her contact. Within the Calder diaspora, the right will require the psychic convergence of 15 Nexus worlds. Coordinates follow. They must be prevented from aligning the amplifiers. The message blinked on her datapad, 10 sets of star system coordinates, each guarded by a cache of arcane lore. Reyes knew that if the Concord could disrupt even one amplifier, the right would falter. Yet revealing this meant exposing her agent and fracturing the fragile trust within the council. She hesitated, then tapped out a brief transmission to Ambassador Crawford. "Prepare to unmask the Cal. Dur network, we cannot fight blind." Fractured. Unitas dawn approached on Artevos. The council's unity faltered. Admiral Voss threatened to withdraw the Sable Fleet. The Malethi envoy demanded assurances that no species would seize Calder technology for colonial exploitation. The Xanthians insisted on a unanimous vote for any strike order. Human delegates grew exasperated by endless procedural delays. Amid the shouting, Admiral Tsak stood and silenced the chamber with a single word: enough. Her multiple eyes glowed. "If we cannot agree on unity, we must at least agree on survival." One proposed a two-phase operation. Phase 1, surgical strikes at the Nexus amplifiers. Phase 2, hold the line until our combined fleets can muster at Vexa Prime. Silence reigned. Even the security drones ceased their hum. Ambassador Crawford leaned forward. Voice weary but determined, agreed. We'll vote on Phase 1 now. Cameras descended, recording each delegate's decision. The vote passed, but only by a slim margin. The calm before the storm outside the Grand Rotunda. The terraces glowed under Artivos's pale moonlight. Fleets slipped through the ether toward distant coordinates. Agents vanished into the nebula, bound for covert sabotage. Dr. Reyes gathered her pack, ready to join a strike team of Xanthian adepts and Voran commandos. Captain Reynolds sighed as she strapped her blaster sidearm to her hip dot in that fragile moment. As alliances were forged and betrayals plotted, the galaxy held its breath. The gathering storm had coalesced into something final and irreversible. Somewhere beyond the horizon of known space, the Kaldor were already activating their Nexus amplifiers, tuning the universe's frequencies for a ritual that could rend the very fabric of reality. The second act had begun, and when the first shots rang out, there would be no turning back. The barren moon of Relia lay silent beneath its twin suns, a desolate orb scarred by eons of meteor impacts and tectonic upheavals. Its thin atmosphere trembled in the solar winds, carrying the faintest echoes of past civilizations long since buried beneath its crimson sands. Here, far from any convenient supply lines or friendly orbitals, the Concord chose to strike first. Shadow of Relia 347 Galactic Standard Time. The temporary command station carved into the moon's northern crags lit up with activity. Captain Asha Reynolds watched the holo display with an unnerving calm. 8 Voran plasma cruisers and 6 human Gauss frigates lay cloaked beyond the horizon's curvature, their frames shimmering in the false dusk. Dr. Alina Reyes, flanked by Xanthian adepts and a squad of Malethi biosaboteurs, prepared to deploy through the subterranean tunnels to locate the first amplifier nexus. Reynolds' voice crackled over comms. All teams acknowledge, surgical strike only. No full-scale engagement until we confirm amplifier shutdown. Understood? A chorus of affirmation, some mechanical, some organic, filled the chamber. Beyond the reinforced viewport, matte black, dropships began their ghosts of smoke descent toward the target site. A series of obsidian pylons humming with latent energy. Ambush at dawn. Moments later, the Concord's cloaked fleet surged from hyperspace, slipping around Relia's dark side. Admiral Tsak's flagship, the Ikral Maru, led the formation. Her mandibles quivered with anticipation as she watched the Kaldor scout flotilla materialize, sleek triangular corvettes bristling with psionic emitter arrays. With a silent signal, the Voran cruisers flared their cloaks and opened fire. Beams of ionized light stabbed into the Kaldor shields. Gravitic missiles warped through space to slam into hulls. The scout fleet reeled, its crystalline plating crumbling like glass, but the Kaldor were prepared. From the haze beyond the engagement zone, swarms of fighter drones descended in perfect insectal formations, their energy blades sliced into the Concord ships. Explosions dotted the silent sky as fighters spiraled into oblivion, dragging shards of plasma-lit debris behind them. Reynolds barked orders. Target the emitter pylons now. Human frigates switched to rapid-fire Gauss rounds while Voran ships unleashed concentrated plasma jets. 3 of the 6 pylons collapsed in a cascade of implosive blasts, fracturing the amplifiers. Power, matrix, cheers erupted on the calm channels until the unthinkable happened. Rift in the Lineth Kaldor flagship Orovainth dropped from warp on the far side of the battlefield, its arrival heralded by a shockwave that rippled across the void. The vessel's crystalline contours glowed with furious energy as it twisted gravity fields to pull nearby Concord ships off course. To plasma cruisers, Voran wonders of engineering were trapped in a spatial eddy and torn apart. Molecularly, Tsak's eyes narrowed. Counter-strike pattern Delta 7, she ordered, voice grave. Waves of electron lances and railgun barrages struck the Orovainth, gouging glowing fissures along its hull. The flagship shuddered and veered, but did not fall. Below, in the labyrinthine tunnels, Reyes and her team hit the second amplifier. Malethi spores flooded the chamber, clogging the psionic conduits with empathic inhibitors. Xanthian adepts recited fractal counter-rituals to unravel the Kaldor's harmonic resonance. For a moment, The nexus sparkled, then dimmed to silence. Then, the ground trembled. From above, the Oravainth's psychic wave cascaded down the rock, fracturing corridor walls. Team members were thrown against crystalline supports. One biosaboteur's tendrils went limp in the shockwave. Reyes grabbed her neural helm and unleashed the disruptor, an empathic pulse that shattered the Calder's psychic imprint moments before it stabilized. The nexus went inert. A cheer rang in Reyes' calm feed until a new alert flashed. A third hidden amplifier had activated, its coordinates hidden in the saboteur's final data burst. The ritual had been triad-based. To broken, one still alive. Whispers of betrayalist Concord forces scrambled to locate the final pylon. A gravitic torpedo plunged through the atmosphere from orbit, striking the human flagship Resolute. The explosion rocked the fleet's rear wing, severing comm links and sending debris spiraling into the Voran cruisers. Amid the chaos, a coded message reached Admiral Voss aboard the Knight's Vengeance. Strike authority granted, it read, not from the Council, but from a rogue faction within the Concord. The Sable fleet surged forward without warning, breaching the agreed perimeter. Voss dreadnoughts unleashed a ravaging salvo on both Calder and Concord vessels alike. Intent on claiming the spoils of battle for themselves, Sock's mandibles clicked in anger. Identify that signal, she hissed, as her lieutenants scrambled. She realized the bitter truth. Unity had fractured under the weight of ambition. Friend and foe blurred as railguns and plasma beams crossed alignments. Aftermath of blood. When the dust settled, the battlefield was a graveyard of twisted hulls and drifting wreckage. The Oravainth lay crippled but still alive, its psionic shields flickering. The Resolute was a shattered hulk, its crew in stasis. 3 Concord ships were lost, and 2 Voran plasma cruisers disintegrated in the spatial eddy. The final amplifier remained intact, its Darkham a ticking promise of catastrophe. Dr. Reyes emerged from the tunnels, stained with crystalline sap and blood. She met Captain Reynolds at the forward airlock. Their visors retracted to reveal eyes haunted by the price of victory. Or what should have been victory. They've slipped away with their last amplifier, Reyes said quietly. And we just proved to the Calder that we will fracture ourselves from within. Reynolds' jaw tightened. Then we'll have to finish what we started together. No more half measures. Behind them, the moon's horizon bled dawn-red light across the scarred landscape. Above, the battered Concord fleet regrouped. Though the cost had been great, a resolve hardened in their ranks. The Calder's boast would not stand unchallenged, and the right would be broken at its source. But as the survivors limped back to orbit, none could deny that the gathering storm had unleashed forces darker than any single conqueror, and that the true war for the galaxy was only just beginning. The void before Vexa Prime burned with the light of 1,000 warships, from the frozen rings of Draxon's belt to the swirling clouds of the Velen Nebula. Fleets poured in, joined by battered remnants of the Sable fleet, to proud to stand aside despite its betrayal at Relia. Under the cracked skies of Calder's homeworld, the final confrontation would unfold. Operation Dawnbreaker at 5:13 Standard Time. Admiral Tsock of the Voran Collective issued the order that all Starfleet captains had been awaiting for months. Commence Operation Dawnbreaker. The war horns of the Voran dreadnoughts echoed in subspace, a deep, resonant timbre that shook the sensors of allied vessels. Behind Tsock, Captain Nasha Reynolds braced herself on the bridge of the Resolute II, its hull brand new despite echoes of the shattered original. Across the strategic holomap, red cones marked concentrated Calder strongholds, while green markers showed pockets of Concord forces poised to breach. Dr. Alina Reyes stood at the heart of the Joint Command Center, on the orbiting station Pax Astra, her neural helm tucked under a reinforced visor. Beside her, Xanthian adepts and Malethi bioengineers finalized the calibrations of the psychic dampeners they would deploy at each Nexus amplifier if they could silence those nodes. The Calder's grand right, the convergence of psionic energies that threatened to rewrite reality, would collapse. Sock's synthesized voice crackled over the comm network. Phase 1 begins. Inbound squadrons converge on amplifier Nexus Gamma. Ground teams prepare for insertion. Across the network, human fighters, Malethi gliders, Voran assault barges, and Xanthian teleport pods flickered into coherence, converging on the violet glow of the Gamma pylon, breach of the Cytathlon Vexa Prime's surface. The Concorde's amphibious landing barges plummeted through the electric storm that shielded the Calder citadel. Storm clouds crackled with psionic energy, an unnatural aurora that danced across obsidian spires. Bolts of violet lightning struck the highest pinnacles, sending cascades of sparkling debris to the plaza far below. Captain Reynolds led her infantry companies through the shockwave of the first orbital bombardment. The plaza, once a parade ground of marble and crystal, lay fractured statues shattered, jeweled fountains drained of their luminescence. Calder warriors, towering figures wreathed in plasma tendrils, advanced in perfect formation. Their weapons, crystalline rods humming with lethal frequencies, carved arcs of light through the choking dust. "Hold the line," Reynolds shouted, slamming her fist against a shattered bench for cover. Human Marines raised Gauss rifles, Malethi. Biosaboteurs melted into the smoke to flank, and Xanthian adepts formed a psychic phalanx to shield the allied troops from the psionic onslaught. The air rang with the clash of mind. Against Mindraze's dampeners fought the Calder S amplifiers tooth and nail dot above them. The Ikral Maru and Knight's Vengeance circled like hunting griffins. Voron plasma lances lanced through the storm, while sable dreadnoughts unleashed broadsides that shook the very foundations of the citadel. Great crystalline walls sprouted spiderweb cracks under the combined fire. The fall of Nexus Gamma in the east wing of the citadel. A joint strike team led by Dr. Reyes reached Amplifier Nexus Gamma. The pylon stood 70 meters tall, an obsidian monolith inscribed with fractal glyphs that pulsed in time with the Calder-S psychic heartbeat. The ground around it was littered with the bodies of Calder engineers and Concorde commandos, proof of how fiercely both sides guarded this keystone. Reyes placed her hand on the pylon's base, feeling its vibrations. "Biosaboteurs, deploy spores," she ordered. Hundreds of Malethi spores drifted upward, coalescing into a pale cloud that choked the pylon's psionic conduits. Simultaneously, Xanthian adepts chanted the counter-ritual, their voices weaving mathematical patterns that disrupted the amplifier's harmonic structure. For a moment, the pylon's glow faltered. Sparks of violet flickered and died. Cheers crackled through the comlink. Then the ground trembled harder than any quake. The pylon collapsed inward in a silent implosion, shards of crystalline metal scattering like glass in the wind. The psychic resonance that had flickered across the battlefield vanished in an instant, leaving an eerie stillness broken only by distant gunfire. Fractured schisis, the Concorde celebrated the fall of Nexus Gamma. A colossal shockwave rattled the city below. From the citadel's tallest spire, the high matron of the Calder emerged, a figure 12 meters tall, her tendrils ablaze with pure cosmic fire. Behind her, the remaining two Nexus amplifiers Delta and Sigma activated in unison, their combined powers forging a conduit of psionic energy that sliced through space itself. Admiral Tsok's voice cut through the calm static. "Tactical retreat. All units, pull back, reform at rally points Alpha and Beta." But across the battlefield, not everyone heard. In the heat of victory, factions fought on, drawn into the maelstrom of power. In orbit, the Sable Fleet betrayed its own at the moment of triumph. Admiral Voss, intent on claiming the amplified power for himself, broke formation and fired on both Concorde and Calder ships. The resulting crossfire rent the sky in ribbons of light, throwing thousands of vessels into chaos. Captain Reynolds saw the devastation from the plaza. "They've turned on us," she cried, raising her rifle to aid fleeing Marines. Malethi gliders swooped to shield human units. Xanthian adepts formed protective fields around Voron troops. Even in disarray, the Allied forces held together, united not by orders, but by survival. The heart of the citadel above the cratered plaza, a shuttle bore Dr. Reyes and her closest guards toward the citadel's core. Its engines flared through shattered windows as the craft punctured the inner sanctum, a cathedral of shifting crystal, its walls alive with spidery veins of light. At its center lay the final amplifier, Nexus Omega, the heart of the right. The shuttle crash-landed in a blaze of energy. Reyes and her team poured out, weapons drawn. Calder acolytes surged toward them, their bodies crackling with charge. Phalanxes of psionic guardians formed around the pylon, their eyes swirling with infinite galaxies. Reyes steadied her neural helm. "Now or never," she whispered, and activated the dampener pact with all the raw will of the Concords united. Minds. A wave of empathic energy burst forth, colliding with the Calder's psionic field in a deafening roar that shattered the sanctum's crystal. Seams, duel of wills at the moment of collapse. The High Matron swept into the chamber in a blaze of furious light, her voice unearthly, resonant echoed in every mind present. "You dare defy destiny itself?" Her tendrils coalesced into blades of pure ether as she lunged at Reyes. Captain Reynolds intercepted, Gauss blade meeting psionic flame. In a shower of sparks, side by side, they fought a ballet of destructive gray steel versus mind, flesh versus fate. Each strike rang through the chamber like an augury of the galaxy's future. Dr. Reyes, focused on the nexus, channeled the combined energy of every species. She represented human resolve, Voran precision, Malethi empathy, Xanthian logic. The dampener's glow grew white-hot, then eclipsed the matron's aura in a blinding flash. When the light faded, Nexus Omega lay in splinters, the final conduit, unraveled in silent collapse. The psionic storm that had threatened reality itself dissipated like a morning mist under sunlight. Dawn of a new alien silence reigned as the victors caught their breath. The citadel trembled. Shards of crystal rain sifted down like snow. The High Matron's form, subdued but unbroken, retreated into the fissures, her roar of defiance fading into the depths. On the plaza below, the battered Concord forces gathered. Admiral Tsock stood beside Captain Reynolds and Dr. Reyes, their faces lit by the twin suns of Vexa Prime rising above the horizon. Across them, the remnants of the Calder fleet disengaged. Limping into the void, Reyes removed her helm, voice hoarse. "The right is broken. The Calder, they have no more power to bind us." A cheer rose among the allied troops, a reward earned in blood and sacrifice. Tsock's mandibles clicked once a Voran salute. "Let them know," she said, "that conquest by terror is no longer inevitable." Reynolds nodded, sidearm raised in a gesture of solidarity. "To every species here we stand or fall together." As the first dawn of post-Calder war bathed the citadel in gold, the galaxy discovered what the conquerors had forgotten, that true strength lies not in domination, but in unity forged through shared peril. 500,000 years later, the Calder-S boast had brought the galaxy to its knees, and from that crucible, a new alliance was born. The war for the dawn had ended, and the age of cooperation began.